Good evening and welcome to the Gay Liberation Network's live call-in show on CAN TV. This evening we will be talking about police accountability and the Laquan McDonald murder conviction of Jason Van Dyke. And we are here with Frank Chapman from the Alliance, who has been very active since the news break of Laquan McDonald's murder, with demonstrations, proposing new laws, organizing so that we can change this this story for the city of Chicago. Welcome, Frank.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So last Friday we saw that the Cook County justice system, passed down the jurors passed down a verdict finding the second-degree murder charge on Jason Van Dyke, and we're going to go to some screenshots of the activities on last Friday, and there was a good positive demonstration afterwards. In that afternoon with the verdict, lots of people in the street. Mm-hmm. Frank, what did you think of that conviction?
Well, it was a historic victory for the movement. That's my initial reaction. I, along with a lot of other people, was in doubt about our ability to pull it off. And I say our ability because I think this is strictly a victory for the movement. I don't give the criminal justice system any credit for this, because we had to go up against that system in order to even get those tapes released, So it was strictly a victory for the movement, and it showed once again what the power of the people can do when we consistently take up the struggle for justice.
That's right. And the first day of the trial, one of the speakers at the demonstration that was going on outside the court made this great point about this is the movement that brought about the end of Gary McCarthy as the chief of police, and it brought about the end of Anita Alvarez as the state's attorney, which was basically the legacy of the Daley years of torture and things. And this is the movement that the night before that, the start of the trial, Rahm Emanuel decided that he was not going to run for mayor. This is the movement that brought the people movement.
Absolutely.
That brought about those things, and now has brought about this conviction.
And that would have been, I believe, Council Member Carlos Rosa, who made those points. The only council member, the only elected politician that has stood with us in this movement, not only with regard to the Laquan McDonald case, but with regard to getting our legislation into the city council, which calls for the creation of an already elected all-civilian police accountability council. It's also interesting that on the same day that Rahm Emanuel mentioned that he was not going to run again for mayor, that I got on the Tonight Show by chance, because they had asked Black Lives Matter to be on, and they called me up and asked me could I stand in for him, and I said of course, and because if they'd have known it was me, I wouldn't have got on.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Alliance. So on your screen here is the logo for the Alliance, and tell us about this.
Well, that's a interesting logo, isn't it? But that's what our organization composed in 1973 when we were born. That's sort of our birthmark there. We had our founding convention here in Chicago on May the 17th, 1973, and at that time we had just experienced a hell of a victory in the case of Angela Davis, unprecedented victory, because she was facing first-degree murder charges, and we were able to not only we were able to get an acquittal from an all-white jury. So we had that going on, but also we were forming in the wake of a tremendous tragedy, and that was the murder of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. So we came out of the victory with Angela Davis, but at the same time, we sobered up real quick, realizing what we faced in terms of what was going on in the rest of the country. The Panther 21 was locked up. There was lots of political prisoners all across the country. Assata Shakur had just had a so-called shootout with the state troopers in New Jersey, and so we were facing a crisis in repression, and so we chose that slogan, "Freedom is a constant struggle," because we knew then that we had our work cut out for us in terms of defending our movement, defending the right of our people to organize and protest. And also we had the American flag with the bars down this way to indicate that we were we were up against mass incarceration. Didn't even started then. They didn't even have that slogan, but we were up against our people being sent to prison. At this time, it was mass incarceration of the movement. An unprecedented number of people who were involved in the Black Liberation Movement and another liberation movements, the Chicano Liberation Movement, Puerto Rican Liberation Movement, were in prison. Lolita LeBron, Oscar Lopez, a number of people, Leonard Peltier from the American Indian Movement, Richard Deruba Moore or Deruba Ben Wahad from the Black Panther Party, Geronimo Pratt from the Black Panther Party. So we were fighting to liberate our people from prison. So that's why we had the bars there.
So we've had this victory in the movement of the people, and the next stage in this for this one case is the sentencing of Jason Van Dyke. That's October 30th, I believe. And the goal of the sentencing would be, some justice for Laquan and correction of Van Dyke's behavior. But there's systemic police reform that's needed, and
well, absolutely. We're kind of like in the situation we was in 1973. This is a tremendous victory, like we had in the Angela Davis case. But at the same time, it sharpens the challenges in front of us. And one of the major challenges in front of us is how do we bring about a change that's going to prevent there being other Laquan McDonalds? Because the system that's in place now is designed to create more victims. And we have to change that system. If we don't change that system, it's going to be, in fact, leading up to the trial of Jason Van Dyke, there were 3 murders, that are highly questionable, which we are still trying to get the so-called investigative body, COPA, to look into. But the challenge is to change the system. That's always been the challenge. The system has always been the problem. And we think we can begin to do that with CPAC, with an Elected Office of Civilian Police Accountability Council. So our next step, in fact, it's not our next step, it's been our continuous step, is to get this legislation passed. Every time we raise the question of justice for Laquan, we also said CPAC now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just yesterday, the American Bar Association's journal published a report which further evidenced the injustices that we've seen with our police department here in Chicago by stating that 1/4 of the U.S. false confessions, so all the false confessions that are in the country, 1/4 of them are occurring in the Chicago area. So it's a systemic problem. CPAC is the plan for community-controlled and accountable policing system. How does that relate to the calls that I've heard of this week for charges on the chain of command that covered up the murder video that we saw of the murder of Laquan McDonald, and how would CPAC relate to that?
Well, CPAC relates to that into all police crimes, because what CPAC does is takes power out of the hands of the mayor and the city council and the police board and COPA and puts it in the hands of the people. In other words, the people would be empowered to investigate, to charge, to hire and fire, to write the behavior manual and the conduct manual for the police. The people would be empowered to do these things, whereas now the folks empowered to do those things are political cronies appointed by the mayor. The people would be empowered to do them through an election process, through a democratic process. And so if we had CPAC in place, then we could vigorously carry out the prosecution of police officers who commit crimes. With the present system in place, it's very difficult to carry out a vigorous prosecution because the present system, as I said earlier, is designed to excuse and justify their crimes, not to punish them.
And you think that it could this public control of the accountability of the police force could also affect the code of silence that exists within the police force about these?
We could eliminate it. We could eliminate it because here's what CPAC basically does. It basically empowers the people to say who polices our communities and how our communities are policed. So who polices our communities means we don't want racist cops policing the African American community and the Chicano communities, or any other community of color. So that's about who. And how is about how the people who live in those communities want to see their communities policed. The way that they're being policed now is that the police allows drug trafficking and 70% of the homicides which are related to drug trafficking in our communities are unsolved because police are not trying to solve them. The police are not trying to police the community in such a way that benefits, well, let me put it like this here, that serves and protects the community. And so that would be changed. And changing that also involves changing the code of conduct of the police, where the code of silence under CPAC would be illegal. It would not be legally tolerated, whereas presently it's tolerated, it's allowed.
This is a live call-in show. The number's on your screen there. We do invite your calls if you have comments or questions for us. Gay Liberation Network has, through the years, been involved in a variety of police infractions, very much targeted at LGBT individuals as well by our Chicago police. And so we are all together in this effort to make our police force more accountable. Right now, as we await this sentencing period and going forward, what should we all be doing in this time period?
Well, we're going to invite you and whoever is within the listening audience. We're going to invite you to come to a mass rally and press conference that we're going to be having at the City Hall on Tuesday, not this coming Tuesday, but Tuesday, October the 23rd. And on Tuesday, October 23rd, we're going to be having a press conference there where we're going to be probably invoking Rule 41. City Council Member Rosa is going to bring CPAC to the City Council floor to be voted on. Why do we want to do that? We want to do that because it's time for these City Council members to get off the dime. We're going to let the people of Chicago to know where they stand when it comes to dealing with police crimes. And so that's what's next for us.
We've got some more pictures here from the demonstrations last Friday celebrating the verdict. And so October 23rd, 1 week before the sentencing of Jason Van Dyke, there will be this rally at City Hall to get CPAC, the Community Police Accountability program put in place in the city of Chicago. So Gay Liberation Network and the Alliance have worked together, recognizing the fact that the military, the police, and the local gun violence that we're seeing in our communities is all one systemic condition that we're all are part of, and we've seen that, very much so in Ferguson with the Michael Brown murder, and in the follow-up demonstrations that occurred there, the military material that was released on the crowds and on the people. We did some actions together commemorating the 1968 riots here in Chicago, calling out the end of the Vietnam War, and that effect on our communities. We recently just had last Friday an action calling out Congressman Quigley on the north side of the 5th District of the U.S. Congress that has not been a vocal opponent of military funding. So do you have any on these cases and how CPAC ties into that?
Well, we're all fighting for a more democratic, a more humane, less militarized, ultimately no militarized society. And we join together in that. CPAC fits into that overall movement very comfortably and very militantly, because we too recognize the role of the military. In fact, we see the police in our communities as a military force. You mentioned about Ferguson. They had armored cars down there. They had snipers. They had, it showed that that a lot of military hardware that the Pentagon has been getting rid of in the last 20, 30 years has been going to the local police forces. So these are very connected phenomena, and I'm so glad that we're working with the Gay Liberation Network on these issues and with other organizations and groups on these issues, because it's a united effort among all of us that's going to bring about the change that we need to bring about. So we're united, and we're fighting for democracy, peace, and social progress.
We have a caller. We'll take the call.
Yes, a quick comment. I haven't seen the whole show, but I've seen this gentleman talk, and I've read in the papers and whatnot. You know what I am so scared of? It seems like it's never enough. You want to go after everyone, the lawyers, the attorneys, the police department, the superintendent, the mayor, the alderman. It's just so on, so on, so on. And then if you're not going to get, everybody's going to feel he should get life or death. Some people going to say if he gets 6 years, they're ready to tear up the city. If he get 12 years, they're going to be wanting to give up the city. When is it going to be enough? We need to start trying to get our lives together. We can't keep on drilling on things over and over and over. You're an older guy. You've been around for quite some time. When do it stop? When do we pull the flowers out of the ground and plant some new seeds and wait for the other to come? Just keep on going. It's not going to resolve anything. It might not be a favorite, what I'm saying to you, but just think about it. That's all. Just think about it. I mean, we want to shut down everything except, I don't know, our own apartment. So, again, enough is enough. Let's keep our lives going.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the call.
Yeah,
Let
thank
me
you for
get
the
off
comment.
your air so I can hear your response. Thanks.
Yeah, let's hear from Frank.
Well, I hope the police are listening, and I hope Trump is listening. I hope the people who are misgoverning the society are listening. The people who take food stamps away from children, I hope they're listening. I hope the people who don't give us help delivery services, I hope they're listening, because this is what they need to hear. See, most of the violence that's perpetrated in this society is perpetrated by the government, either through through austerity programs and through bad policing. Now, we are not going to stop as long as we're being oppressed, as long as our rights are being taken away from us, as long as we're being denied our humanity. We are going to fight back. If that makes some people uncomfortable, we're not sorry. You need to be uncomfortable, you know. Maybe you need to get in the fight. But anyway, everybody's entitled to their own opinions and their own points of view. Our point of view is freedom is a constant struggle. We're going to fight for our freedom. We're going to fight for our dignity until the people who are taking it away from us are out of the way, until they stop doing it, you know. We're not expecting them to just give us our freedom. Our freedom is something that we're going to have to take. And taking our freedom means getting them out of the way, because that's what they are. They're in the way.
Hear, hear. I mean, as we've talked about on this program, you know, false confessions are not something that we want. The jurors in that room decided that death was a murder. It takes a movement of the people that has gone on since 1973 in order to get these police convictions to actually occur.
Can I just say one thing about the sentencing situation? Because the Chicago Tribune and the lawyer Herbert for Jason Van Dyke, they floated this rumor that he can get 6 years. I heard that in the caller's statement. He's facing 96 years on the assault charges alone if the judge just gives him a minimum of 6. The law forbids the judge to run those sentences concurrently. So he's facing more than 6 years. He's facing the rest of his natural life in prison. That's what he's facing. And legally, the judge can't get out of that. He can't get, because the minimum amount of time the judge can give him is 6 years on each of the assault counts and 4 years on the first degree murder. So that comes out to 100 years, you know, 96 plus 4. He's going to spend a long time in jail, the rest of his life, unless they win it on appeal. Because as matters stand right now, he's not getting out of this with no 6 years. That's a lie. And the lawyer who put that out there know it's a lie. Because they've been doing that all during the defense. That's been their defense. Their defense has been based on a lie.
So to continue this movement, we want to formalize the police accountability in the legislation of CBEC that's out there. Frank, thank you for joining us from the Alliance on Gay Liberation Network show. Frank, you have a wonderful chant that you lead at all of our rallies that when I say CPAC,
you say fight back.
So let's do that to end out our show here.
When I say CPAC, you say fight back. CPAC.
Fight back.
CPAC.
Fight back.
CPAC.
Fight back.
CPAC. Okay. Now, this is the best show I've been on since I've been coming down here.